Welcome back, everyone! Mail day number 2. I thought we would just take a quick look at some of the cards that I just picked up, just so that you guys can get a feel for what kind of things I've been playing at the shop when I'm not playing online, and you know, just to look at some cool, fun, and interesting cards. So first thing is, I purchased the Elesh Norn ETB deck that I played, I don't know, was that a couple months ago now? I really liked the way that deck played, and I thought it did a lot of cool stuff, so I've decided to build it. I had about 25% of the cards already in my collection, so that left me with about 75% of the deck to go, you know, excluding lands and stuff like that. But one of the things that you guys may not know is that I only really build 1, maybe 2 paper decks a year. I don't build a lot of decks in paper. It is really expensive to do so, and at the moment, most of my money has to go to other things, so doesn't leave a lot of room to be building commander decks, and that is one of the reasons that I really like playing on Magic Online. It is so much cheaper to build new decks, try out new cards. Once you're like me and you have all the staples, it becomes really easy to build a deck on Magic Online. But anyway, scrounged up the funds to put this mono white Elesh Norn deck together, which I'm pretty excited about. We'll take a look at some of the cards that I picked up. So down here in the bottom row, you'll see Anointed Procession, Cathar's Crusade, Cloud Shift, Ghostway, Flicker Wisp, Panharmonicon. Above that, we've got a Conjurer's Closet. All really good cards if you're talking about ETB and Blink type of effects. Ghostway is going to be super sweet in this deck if we have a couple creatures down and we're blinking all of them. Even better if we've got Panharmonicon already down. Super cool card out of, what is that, Guild Pack? Guild Pack or Dissension. I don't remember which logo is which at this point. But super sweet card. Flicker Wisp right next to it, also really sweet. And of course, Panharmonicon. Can't go wrong with Panharmonicon. So moving up the table a little bit, we got a few more things. Reliquary Tower, just because it's good. We'll be doing a lot of land tax, Gift of Estates kind of stuff with this deck. We may actually be above the maximum hand size quite a bit. So then we got Lightning Greaves, Luminant Primordial, Ameria, all fantastic cards. Thematic Compass is a card I think is a little bit underplayed. It's really good, especially if you play longer games of Commander. Karmic Guide, just a super awesome white card. Reanimate any of your stuff, and again, more ETB shenanigans. We'll be looking to bring back that. We will be running the Revelark combo in this deck, so if we get that set up, we can potentially reanimate many things out of our graveyard. Then we have Assault Monolith, just some ramp there. And then we have Captain of the Watch. Captain of the Watch, super cool. It brings a ton of creatures with it. It gives them abilities and is an ETB creature, so it's going to fit in beautifully in this deck. Ameria Shepherd. Ameria Shepherd is one of my favorite cards in white. I think it's also highly underplayed for what it does. Reanimate any permanent out of your graveyard for simply just dropping a plains is so good. One of the things that makes me sad is that there aren't great ways to tutor for this thing in mono white. If you have like Burnished Heart or Solemn Simulacrum with a sack outlet, you can potentially get all of the basics out of your deck by looping that every time. And Burnished Heart's cool too because you're bringing 2 lands in, so you can get other stuff back while you're doing it. Just a really sweet card that I really enjoy playing, and something that I'd like to break a little bit more on the channel when I have some time. So there's a small cat sub-theme in the deck with Areskos and Stalking Leonin, both good ETB creature cards. Areskos doesn't get run all that much, but if you're facing some green decks, just putting extra lands in your hand for a mere 2 mana is a pretty good place to be, and again, especially if the games go longer for you. If the game's not ending on turn 6, you want to be hitting all those lands, so Areskos is going to be a great way to find those. Martial Coup, really good with Elesh Norn at the helm. Blow everything up, we get a bunch of tokens, recast our commander, hit for big damage. Next up, we've got Lapse of Certainty, a card that I've been wanting to try out a little bit more. I've been running it in some of my decks, but I haven't had it come up at exactly the right moment when I need it, so it's been a little awkward that way. But something I want to keep testing with. If someone's trying to play a big spell late in the game, or really any play that they're tapping out a ton of mana for, it'll counter that spell and put it back on top of their library, and they'll get another crack at it next turn, but sometimes just losing that kind of tempo can actually just make someone lose the game, especially depending on what else is going on board, so still excited to get some testing in with that, see how that goes. Hopefully stop that big Cyclonic Rift or stop that big Tooth and Nail, and then everyone else at the table can kind of gang up on that player and hopefully get him out of the game before the big spell hits. Custody Squire, another interesting reanimation card. I haven't really played with this one too much, but I'm interested to give it a try, see what it does. Palace Jailer is another interesting one. This is mono white card draw, essentially. That's why it's in there. Get that Monarch token down. Also, I like what the Monarch token does by creating that little sub-game, because sometimes there's too much incentive for players to just sit back and not do anything. And Palace Jailer makes people start attacking more, so it gets the life totals moving, so that you don't get to like turn 9 and everyone's still at like 34. So then moving up to the top, we have Corehaven, which I actually picked up 2 copies of. I'll be putting it in this deck, and I'll be trying it out in one of my other Boros decks. I'm not sure which one yet. Potentially the Angels deck. Corehaven's a really good utility land that I honestly just kind of forgot about for like most of the time that I've been playing white and playing Boros. A really good protection card. So something I think I need to be running a bit more, and you know, just keeping myself protected from big threatening creatures. Next up, White Sun Zenith. White Sun Zenith is probably the closest thing that Mono White has to a surprise finisher kind of thing. Like with the green deck, someone drops a Crater Hoof or plays a Tooth and Nail, and then everyone usually just kind of dies. White Sun Zenith doesn't completely kill everyone, but it's still got that surprise element because it's an instant and you can do it at the end step, and especially if you've got a lot of mana floating around. It can potentially be lethal, you know, depends on what other things are going on, but I think it's really one of the best options that Mono White has for that big late game card. And especially because we're playing Elesh Norn, so those tokens could potentially be 4/4s or bigger if Helm of the Host is down. And then we got some Foily Thalia's Lancers, another great ETB card, gonna help us find some legends out of this deck. I'm also thinking about trying it out in the Angels deck, so that way we can find particular legendary angels much easier. So then we slide over, we got a couple more cards. Eerie Interlude, very similar to Ghostway. Eerie Interlude does allow you a bit more targeting and freedom in selecting which cards you want to bounce, so it's good if you have a lot of tokens down. You don't want to bounce the tokens because they won't come back. So Eerie Interlude, very cool. And also I think another great pickup. Eerie Interlude is a mono white card that protects you against Cyclonic Rift, or at least it protects your creatures anyway. Sure, you might get your mana rocks bounced, but if half of your creatures are still in play, you can swing back on that blue player pretty hard if all your creatures are still there. And then you don't need to do nearly as much to get caught back up, you just gotta drop your mana rocks again. So I think Eerie Interlude, another underplayed white card. This Tajnar Swordsmith is actually in place of Stoneforge Mystic. Stoneforge Mystic was feeling a bit pricey these days, and I've used up the 2 that I own already, so no Stoneforge Mystic for this deck currently. Tajnar are going to have to do their best Stoneforge Mystic impression for the time being, at least. But hey, at least it's a foil. So that'll finish up on the mono white. I did pick up a few other things for a few other decks while I was making my purchase. So we'll start down here. I'm rebuilding my Sheoldred deck. Currently it's set up as Josu Vess, and even though those are very similar decks, I've been playing in a pretty high power meta from time to time, and I think it's gonna have to be Sheoldred. Not that there's anything wrong with Josu Vess, but Sheoldred basically says that no one can have their commander in play, which is awesome. So we'll be switching back to that. More ETB creatures, Meteor Golem to get rid of artifacts and enchantments, and actually any non-land permanent really, so even potentially the occasional Planeswalker or something else that might come up. Fleshbag Marauder, Merciless Executioner, fantastic cards in Sheoldred. Crypt Rat's another fantastic card in Sheoldred, basically gives you a board wipe that you can recur and kind of bring back. So pretty interesting that way. Nezumi Grave Robber is an interesting one. If you're making a lot of mana, it can be really good. If you find an opponent that only has a couple things in their graveyard, and you have a bunch of mana doublers down, if you exile their graveyard, it'll flip over, which is pay 5 to put a creature from any graveyard into play under your control. So if you get that thing flipped, it's really, really good. In addition to just exiling things from the graveyard, which is pretty important in a lot of games of Commander. So, picking up a few other little knickknacks here. Sadistic Sacrament to shut down combo decks. We can start pulling combo pieces out of their deck. Innocent Blood, more creature removal. 1 mana, can't go wrong. Read the Bones, I just wanted to have a few extra copies of Read the Bones around. Very good card. A card that I've been using over Phyrexian Arena lately. Because it is nice to have that draw right now. Sadistic Hypnotist, there's going to be a decent discard theme in the Sheoldred deck that I'm building. We're going to be using things like Augur of Skulls, Sadistic Hypnotist, and 1 or 2 other things, probably even just like a Duress. So that's the end of the Sheoldred purchases that I've made. I've got a couple more things that I need to get for that deck still. I still need to get a Sidisi. Those are a little bit more expensive than I was hoping at the moment. Hopefully I can pick one up on a trade or something like that. That would be pretty sweet. And then finally we have 2 red cards. These are both for Ashling the Pilgrim. War Elemental is a card that we saw in the EDH Lounge do some real work. I've seen it show up a couple of times now. In the right deck, War Elemental is really, really powerful. Aurelia Exemplar of Justice is also another great deck for it because it can give it trample. A really cool and underused card that can just get absolutely massive. And then Scrap Mastery is a way to get back all of our artifacts. It's essentially living death for artifacts. And the Ashling deck has so many artifacts in it. It is so weak to a Vandal Blast or an Austere Command that Scrap Mastery gives us a way to recover should someone play one of those spells. So excited to give that one a try as well. Oh, and one thing on the Elesh Norn deck, I've never done this before, so I bought all these cards, and I have a bunch of cards sitting around. I forgot to buy Elesh Norn. I don't have any Elesh Norns. I literally forgot to buy the commander of this deck. So if I end up playing before my second shipment of cards comes in, I'm going to use Lena in the command zone, which I think could actually be really cool. She's very similar to Captain of the Watch and makes tokens when she comes down, and you can protect yourself against board wipes and other things, so we'll be using that in the meantime, and we'll see how that goes. But yeah, I literally forgot to buy the commander for this deck. That made me feel real dumb. Alright, welcome back. Mail Day Part 2. Got my second shipment from Card Kingdom in because I forgot to order things in the first shipment, like my commander. So let's take a look at what I got. First up, we have the Boros deck box. Got this beautiful picture of Sacred Foundry on it. Also got these Boros sleeves. The current sleeves that I'm using in my Aurelia deck are starting to get pretty chewed up. I've been using them for 2 or 3 years. So it might be time for some new ones, and these ones are looking pretty sweet. Plus our plan now is to just take our fist and go like this to our opponents and give them the old Boros fist bump. And then finally, most importantly, we got a bunch of cards. So let's take a look at what I got. So we got shipment 2 all laid out. This shipment has a lot of Boros in it. I put the Aurelia all creature deck back together, and I was looking to make a few upgrades there. So I picked up Odric Master Tactician, picked up a Fervor, always good to have around. Mind Stones, I need to be ramping more in my decks. I realized for a long time that I wasn't really running enough ramp, so that's a thing. Reconnaissance is one that I'm very excited about. Not a card that I've used a lot, just one of those things that I tend to forget about because it's a weird old card that just easy to overlook. So then we have Grenzo Havoc Razor. That's another one I'm excited to try out. Next up we have some Crush Contrabands. They are really cheap right now. I imagine that like in a year or two those things will probably be like 75 cents or $1 just because it's such good artifact and enchantment removal. It goes really well with Return to Dust. Having a few of these around is going to be a good idea. Picked up one foil just to have one around, put it in the Aurelia deck, have things look real nice. Then we have Precinct Captain, which is actually a really good 2-drop in Aurelia. I've been starting to track my damage on a spreadsheet when I play that deck now, and I was able to do about 21 damage over the course of a game with Precinct Captain and its tokens. So pretty good little 2-drop. Probably loses a little bit of value as the game wears on, but if you get it down early, it's really good. Alright, so next up we have a big pile of Insult to Injury. This is a really good card. You guys should be running this in red and in Boros. Things like Glacial Chasm and Constant Mists are a really big problem in some decks, and if you're trying to Alpha Strike, this will completely shut those cards off, in addition to doubling your damage. So it's a really good card. And also, don't forget that 2 damage to player or planeswalker and 2 damage to a creature, if you play both halves in the same turn, that's actually 4 damage to a creature and 4 damage to a player, since that damage is doubled. Really useful card. It just came onto my radar pretty recently, and I think it's a must include in damage-based decks now. Next up, Sylvia and Korvath. I have some plans to kind of build that deck casually. I have many Boros decks already, so I probably won't be able to go crazy with it. Also kind of interested to try it out in the 99 of Aurelia, since if you play one of them, it can partner for the other, and that's pretty cool. I haven't actually resolved it yet. It'll be best if you have something like a Scroll Rack or a Sensei's Divining Top, and you can manipulate the top card of your library. I'm not sure if it's worth it if you're just going blind. Then a Core Cartographer, that's going in the Elesh Norn deck, and I just wanted to have a couple extras lying around. So next up we have some Taurine Maulers. Is an absolute all-star on the EDH Lounge. I feel like someone plays one every game and it gets pretty big. I was surprised when I found out I didn't actually have any of those lying around, so I decided to pick up a couple for my various red decks. Master Warcraft, another really sweet card that I want to try out. Has a lot of different like ramifications when it comes to attacking and blocking. You can use it to simply make your attackers unblockable, which is probably what I'll be doing with it, but also if someone has an untapped creature that you need to kill, you can almost play it like a removal spell and let the rest of the damage go through. And there's also a bunch of other crazy things you can do if you're playing it during opponent's turn. Now, you can force them to attack, but you can't make them choose who to attack, so that could be a problem, especially if you're not running like a Ghostly Prison or something to protect you, or whatever the case is. But a lot of interesting ramifications there, so I'm interested to try this one out, see how that goes. Dousing Dagger, it's actually a pretty good ramp card, especially if you're doing aggressive and small costed creatures in your deck. It does make a huge target for Strip Mine though, so that's something we'll have to be careful of. Want to just have a couple copies of that lying around as well. So next up we have a perpetual timepiece. I'm actually going to try this out in my Angel Reanimator. This is actually a pretty good source of self-mill, especially if you're not in mill colors. So I'm going to see where this goes. Spine Rocknall is a utility land that I've probably undervalued for quite a while, so decided to pick up a couple of these, have some lying around. And Sunset Pyramid is an interesting source of card advantage that I'm looking to try out a little bit. So, a card I'm really interested in trying out is this Treasure Nabber. Can do some weird things with opponents' artifacts and potentially give you more mana ramp for a short period of time. So, haven't had a chance to play this thing yet, but I really want to see what this can do. It looks like it could be really cool. Have you guys had a chance to play this thing? Let me know if you've had success with it, or if opponents just kind of play around it and it doesn't really do that much. But I don't know. Right now I'm really excited about it, so we'll see how it goes. Another interesting removal card is this Volcanic Offering. 7 damage to a creature you don't control and destroy a land, and then another opponent gets to do 7 damage to a creature you don't control and destroy a land you don't control. Pretty sweet value for 5 mana. Can really get rid of a lot of problems. Can kill most creatures, and if there's some problematic lands on the battlefield, it can take care of those as well. And then we have a Jorkadine that I'm interested in trying out in Aurelia as well. We'll see what happens. I don't know if I'm always going to have enough Metalcraft to make that work, but I feel like it's just handy to have a Jorkadine around, because, you know, giving your creatures +3/+0 just seems really good. So I'll need to test that one out and see how that goes. And then this is the commander that I was using over the weekend, since I forgot to order my commander for the Elesh Norn deck. And right next to it, you'll see 2 actual Elesh Norns. One will be the commander of the Elesh Norn deck, as you might expect, and the other is going in the Aurelia all-creature deck. So excited that all this stuff's finally arrived. Interested to try a lot of these things out, so gonna have to keep my eyes peeled and just see how things go. And I'll keep you guys posted if there's anything that I think is overperforming or underperforming. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed this video. As always, feel free to comment, like, or subscribe. Thank you for watching.